Today at Salga, we are honoring Tate O.R. Tambo, a program or process that we have been doing since the year 2006, when we were hosting O.R. Tambo Inter-Municipal Games. But due to the COVID-19, this year the games couldn't be hosted. So we adopted the new normal, which had given birth to a partnership with the West School of Governance in celebrating the O.R. Tambo legacy through this memorial lecture that we are hosting now. We want to acknowledge the apology tendered by the president of Salga, who had something urgent. She was supposed to have joined us. She had something very urgent that came up. She sends her well wishes and appreciates the work that we're doing as an organization to convene different projects in celebration of different leaders who has contributed to South Africa's democracy. We want to acknowledge as well Dr. Duma Moses Nkosi, who is the chairperson of the board of the Oliver Tambo and Adelaide Tambo Foundation. We must note that it is with pride and excitement that he joins us. He was a chairperson of Salga Gauteng PEC when we started the inter-municipal games. So he gave birth with the collective at that time to the games. Also acknowledge the CEO of the Tambo Foundation, Ms. Zengeziwe Msimang. Acknowledge our esteemed, and I'm very happy to acknowledge and welcome our keynote address, our keynote speaker, Ms. Lulu Kalinikos. She's written quite extensively about our former president, Comrade O.R. Tambo. Let's also acknowledge all our attendees from all our municipalities in Gauteng. Acknowledge the Gauteng Provincial Legislature, the Limpopo Provincial Legislature representatives, representatives from municipalities of Limpopo and KZN, including representatives from the Department of Home Affairs, States Africa, and SARS. Also appreciate the partnership that we have with the West School of Governance. We really appreciate it, hoping that it will give birth to more partnerships that are meant to empower our municipalities. With those words, all of you are most welcome. I hope we will participate and enjoy the lecture because we're walking on the shoulders of giants. Tata O.R. Tambo was a man of esteemed integrity. He led the organization during the times when it was very difficult. Hence, Salga has adopted a program of celebrating his outstanding leadership. So you are most welcome. The session is now open. I'm not sure if Mama Boltman has joined in. We also want to acknowledge her. She is the chairperson of the Salga Women's Commission, as well as the Salga NEC member, to give us the opening remarks. Thank you very much. Ms. Boltman?
Councillor, she isn't here yet.
Okay, I guess we can proceed. Then we'll acknowledge that she was supposed to do the opening remarks on behalf of the president and the NEC of Salga. I guess because of the new normal, which is sometimes very problematic for people to join into this technical thing, we will acknowledge her if she joins in, but we would have moved. Can we move?
Yes, please.
Okay. I just need to open the note for. So in moving, we will then note that we'll do the keynote speaker and ask Mama Lulu to be prepared as I go through her CV or her just shortly, her biography of some sort. We're noting that she became a political activist from 1959 after attending an inspirational lecture by Chief Albert Luthuli in the Gandhi Hall in Durban. She then joined the Congress of Democrats, which was a small white branch of the Congress Alliance formed at the People's Meeting in Kliptown, which adopted the Freedom Charter in 1955. Mama Lulu then remained active in organization and as well became an activist of SACTU and up until the COD was banned in 1965. Later, she enrolled for a history degree at Wits University and graduated in 1966. She went on to become a high school teacher in a private school, as she was not prepared to teach history in a government school according to the official birthday school syllabus. So she was even a serious activist at that time. In 1971, she was able to get a restricted passport to join her husband, Mr. Eddie Webster, who was studying at Oxford University. While they were in England, Lulu taught history and English at various high schools. They then returned to South Africa in 1973. In that year, a massive historic worker strike took place. This was led to the formation of FOSATU, which was later to lead the formation of COSATU. Luli became involved in writing a history of workers, translated into isiZulu for a workers' monthly bulletin that was called Abasebenzi. In 1976, she and her husband moved to Wits in Johannesburg, where she began to write a workers' history for the World newspaper until the newspaper was banned after the death of Steve Biko in 1977. Joining up with racial lecturers at Wits, they formed the history workshop. Luli was asked to write a history of the struggle of migrant workers in the gold mines. This work resulted in her first book, Gold and Workers, followed by 2 more volumes in 1982 and in 1993 on the history and struggles of ordinary people. After liberation, she was closely involved with the Department of Arts and Culture Trust team and assisted in shaping policy in the field of heritage and history teaching. She sat on a number of heritage councils, including the National Monument Council, South African Heritage Resource Agency, and was the first chair of the National Heritage Council, the Robben Island Museum Council, and several archives committees and trust teams. In the last decade, she has been appointed to work on a trust team of historians to prepare for the consideration of the Minister of Education a new decolonized syllabus for the school history curriculum from grade 4 up until grade 12. Currently, she is a board member of the National Institute of Humanities and Social Studies. She sits on the Council of Advisors at MISTRA and is also a board member of Kanya College. She has written quite a lot of publications. There's Gold and the Workers, as I indicated. She also helped in translating into Germany the Golden Workers book series that she wrote. Also, she worked on working life, factories and townships and popular culture on the Rand between 1886 and 1940. She also penned a place in the city, the Rand on the eve of apartheid. Also wrote about Oliver Tambo. Another book that we really treasure is Beyond the Angeli Mountains, that she wrote about the life and times of our president. She also contributed to textbooks for COSATU education program, wrote In the World That Made Mandela, which was a heritage trail that she penned down. Lastly, she also penned down Who Built Josie, Discovering Memory at Wits Junction in 2012, which is a 180-page book. In addition, she has contributed to numerous chapters in different books, articles, reviewed academic journals, including contributing in review of popular journals and writing in newspapers. We are honored to have you, Mama Luli, as I ask you to talk to us, people that need to learn out of this outstanding leader, and you sharing our experience of him and all the things that are beautiful that you write in your books. Thank you very much. You are most welcome.
Thank you very much for that introduction, and greetings to everyone, virtual greetings. So should I begin?
Yes, the floor is yours now.
Right, thank you.
Or the virtual floor is yours.
Thanks very much. That's right. So I've called it Oliver Tambo, A Man for All Seasons. And the subtitle is A Political Case for the Moral High Ground, something that should never be out of fashion. Today, our country faces deep challenges, economically, politically, and socially, not unlike the challenges we faced 30 years ago. But 1990 was a time of hope, expectations were high, whereas today we are faced with widespread disillusionment with politics. And that goes for all the political parties. A great advantage we had in 1990 was the existence of a deep layer of respected leadership in the democratic movement. During its 30 years of exile, the leadership of the African National Congress remained relatively unblemished. They were men and women of high caliber. Chief Albert Luthuli, Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela, Walter Sisulu, Chris Hani, Joe Slovo, Albertina Sisulu, Lillian Ngoyi, Gertrude and Mark Shorpe, and many others were unquestionably trusted. During the struggle years against apartheid, they were beacons of hope, and they were regarded as role models for a future free and democratic South Africa. Today, I want to focus on Oliver Reginald Tambo, to whom OR, as he's been called, to whom it was left to pick up the baton after the Rivonia trial, when the ANC narrowly escaped the execution of all its senior leadership. Fortunately, they were sentenced to life imprisonment instead. So what lessons can we learn from the leadership style of Oliver Tambo? What is it that made him an exemplar, an example? And why does his image remain relevant to this day? Tambo had a number of personal characteristics that are timeless, never to go out of fashion. I have identified 4 for this talk. There are others. Let me examine the 4 as important references for all leaders of social and political movements, whether they operate under conditions of oppression or in open democracies struggling to achieve inclusion and equality for all. The first one is integrity. From the beginning of his involvement in the movement, Oliver Tambo was known and trusted for his integrity. He had a clear and strong sense of right and wrong, and this was shared, of course, by his closest comrades, Sisulu and Mandela, who became the movement's most trusted leaders for decades. They contributed to a growing following of the ANC amongst those searching for a way to challenge apartheid. That's during the apartheid period, before the ANC was banned. The correct way forward politically was not always clear in the beginning of their involvement, but always the cause of humanity, Ubuntu, never deserted Tambo in even the darkest days of the struggle. When faced by allegations, for example, of torture of suspected spies in the camps in exile, OR was faced with a dilemma. Many of those involved were senior people that he depended on in the leadership. On the other hand, there were clear breaches of human rights committed by comrades. As a first step, he appointed Chris Hani and Gertrude Schorpe to inspect the camps and report back. The outcome was a commission of inquiry. The report back was a worried one. And so the commission of inquiry was set up, and eventually, after a long period of self-introspection, it led to OR commissioning the movement's top lawyers to put together a constitution for human rights. The constitution that was to become the inclusive guide for South Africa's constitution today. I'm talking about the strategies that OR used in order to both remedy the immediate problem, but also prepare it so that it wouldn't happen again. The second characteristic that OR had was what I call an empathetic selflessness. He never put himself first. He was admired and quite famous for his intellect because of his academic successes. But he linked holistically his intellect with his moral universe of selflessness and Ubuntu, of putting the oppressed and exploited in his country before his personal ambitions. The young Tambo had worked hard to achieve the high honors in his studies, yet he opted consciously to use his expertise not for his own career advancement, but in the service of his people. So when he was sent by Chief Lutuli to leave the country, when there was so much leadership needed inside after Sharpeville, he didn't question it. He went. That was his task. And as a deeply religious man, he felt that possibly was the task. Instead of becoming a church minister, this was the task that God had appointed him for. So another example of how he strategically moved forward after when he was accepted into Fort Hare to study, he loved literature and he loved history, but he reflected carefully before choosing his university degree. He noticed that Black teachers were well represented in the humanities subjects, while there was a shortage, on the other hand, in the sciences, especially maths and science teachers. Those were the subjects that were crucial if young Blacks wanted to advance in professional careers. So he enrolled for a Bachelor of Science degree, and he persuaded his brightest school friends to do the same. So he started a movement towards empowering young intellectuals, not just in the humanities, but also the practical sciences. In his commitment to uplift his people, first as a high school teacher in a period of segregation and apartheid, OR became an unforgettable maths and science teacher at St. Peter's Anglican School in Johannesburg. While I was writing his biography, I interviewed 197 people. Of course, since then, many of these comrades have passed away. And they were hailing him as their hero. This was the very time when the Minister of Education, Dr. Verwoerd, who later became the Prime Minister, concocted a law called Bantu education. What was this new policy? Verwoerd declared Bantu education would teach Black children that they, quote, could never rise above certain forms of unskilled labor. It was this law that 30 years later, in 1976, was to lead to the uprising of school children, dramatically linking them then to the liberation movement, and of course was to directly change the course of history. The third quality of OR's was a principled pragmatism. So he had his principles, but he was always aware of the environment in which people had to work for liberation. And there came a time when he had to, and his comrades had to be more pragmatic when a certain approach failed, then they would have to try another one. So much as Tambo loved his profession as an educator, he saw that the torrent of unjust laws that were being passed by the apartheid government meant that one had to fight legally. Important as education was, this was a more urgent weapon. And it convinced Tambo to change his tactics through the law courts. So while he was teaching, Tambo studied law by correspondence through UNISA and qualified as a lawyer within 3 years. He then began a law practice with his close friend and comrade, Mandela. The practice was called Mandela and Tambo, Attorneys at Law, just opposite the magistrate court. And it was constantly packed with desperate people, jail, arrested for past laws, but all sorts of trivial things, which would lead to devastating sentences, working in the potato farms in the Free State. But right from the start, it was becoming increasingly clear that the government had little respect for the law. In the style of today's Trump, the government packed the upper house of parliament with even more senators handpicked by the apartheid prime minister. Through this strategy, parliament was able to approve with a comfortable majority the passing of decrees that sidestepped the rule of law. They could just have their own decrees without going through the whole process of the two houses of parliament. And the result was an unleashing of thousands, literally thousands of people who were banned, hundreds who were deported from their homes to live in the desert somewhere, on their own. And then, of course, there were also many hundreds of house arrests, let alone, of course, imprisonment. Dozens of people were held without going first through the law court, were held in solitary confinement, tortured in prison without bringing them to court to be tried. Some died in prison, as we know. The time came when, following decades of disciplined, non-violent campaigns, the ANC decided to turn to armed struggle. Until 1962, the ANC had consciously maintained the moral high ground, never deliberately resorting to violence. The slogan was Amandla, power to the people. It now consciously called for a life or death choice. Submit or fight was the new slogan. A liberation army of the people, Mkhonto Wesizwe, was founded. Rapidly, camps were established in the newly independent country of Tanzania. And within weeks, hundreds of young people were escaping in dangerous conditions, often escaping the country to join up. The fourth characteristic is the strategic use of power. Tambo began his political involvement in the ANC Youth League. As he became more involved in the political struggle, he broadened his focus and saw the strategic advantage of forming alliances with other groups. There was, for example, his ability to see the value of a wider inclusion of anti-apartheid allies and agree to support the growing inclusion of the non-African oppressed. The courage, commitment, and strategic advantage, for example, of the non-violent method of passive resistance by the Indian community was very impressive. So this was followed, the passive resistance campaign, by a strategic approach by the ANC, forming an alliance with the two Indian congresses and later this resulted in the Doctors' Pact. Dr. Krumah, head of the ANC, together with Dr. Dadu, who was the leader of the Indian community in the Transvaal. He was also the leader of the Communist Party at the time, which wasn't banned, and Dr. Naika in Natal. And together, they agreed to oppose apartheid as allies in a series of campaigns. In the meantime, the ANC had brilliantly sketched out a program of action, one which moved very deliberately and brilliantly, as I say, from a small group of well-educated leaders of the movement to going down, as the Youth League said, going down to the masses, reaching out to the ordinary people. In 1950, after they'd formed the alliance, the ANC and the Indian congresses consciously supported the trade unions that went on strike on May Day of that year. Unfortunately, it turned violent when the police fired on the protesters. But that was quite inspiring and shocking in a way. And it was followed by increasing numbers of ordinary people joining the new alliance. The colored community, many of whom, of course, were workers and belonged to trade unions, and a small handful of progressive whites. In 1952, a successful defiance campaign drew further support in 1952, as I said, and it was the beginning of the foundations of a mass movement. I just wish I had time to describe all these campaigns. I hope that you're familiar with them. In the meantime, women were organizing themselves too. As workers, many of them domestic workers in those days, as workers as well as mothers, they were paid terrible wages, and their working conditions as domestic workers is that they were on standby 24 hours a day, living in the backyards of white households. So in 1954, the women held a very impressive march in the streets of Johannesburg, which was noted even in the white newspapers. They had a big headline when that march happened. The headline said, "No nannies today," meaning that they were on strike for that day. And then again, the following year, were really excited by the success of that first march. They made history by marching thousands of women, not just from Gauteng, but from all over the country, marching, walking right up to the union buildings in Pretoria, and sat down singing, covering the vast area of the union buildings. The leaders of the march, each one representing the diversity of South African people, Lillian Ngoyi, Helen Joseph, and two others, a colored representative and an Indian representative, younger and older women, delivered this massive pile of signatures at the office of the Prime Minister, Strydom. In the meantime, Strydom, when he saw what was happening, he fled from his office to avoid facing these determined women. But their initiative went further than just the message to Strydom. It produced a comprehensive women's charter that called for the civil rights for all women. While the government had failed to respond, the masses were inspired by the courage of these women. And the outcome, the immediate outcome of that was that the ANC leadership, which all men at the time, were so impressed and moved by the Women's March and their demands that they decided to call for a campaign to reach out to thousands of ordinary people, asking them to list their demands for freedom. And in 1956, as we know, the nationwide Congress of the People was held in Kliptown, making history never to be forgotten, where the 10 clauses of the Freedom Charter were presented. Modeled on the demands made by ordinary people, these demands were loud and clear. The Freedom Charter reflected the voice of the people and was destined to become the model again on which our present-day constitution is founded. In exile, Tambo was strategically able to seize the moral high ground from the apartheid state by building a global network of support. He addressed the United Nations, and it is firmly believed that OR's impassioned speech when after the Rivonia trial, during the Rivonia trial, impressed the international community and influenced the judge's verdict of the Rivonia trialists not to be given the death sentence. Instead, they were given a sentence for life. In exile, OR step by step built a support base. Firstly, with the Nordic countries, Sweden, which welcomed him, and Norway, and also a group, mainly the Labour Party in the UK, the United Kingdom. And at the same time, the Socialist Bloc warmly welcomed the ANC, and of course followed up with providing arms, which he couldn't get from the West for the armed struggle. Only much later was the United States of America persuaded to join. They, in fact, were the most difficult country to persuade. But all in all, the core of his support for the ANC and the struggle in general, not just the ANC, it was the struggle in general, lay in worldwide in the young people. It was they who formed the anchor that was to become a global moral crusade against apartheid, the anti-apartheid movement, which spread to the east as well, in India, for example. I believe that these four qualities of OR were central to his leadership style and remain central today as we face and confront challenges, not exactly the same, but equally daunting. At the center of the Tambo's leadership style was his genuine willingness to hear all the voices, first to listen and then to act. It was this ability that enabled him to hold together the ANC in exile for 30 long years. It is precisely these qualities, attributes, that we need today if we are to bring all South Africans together around the challenges we face. While our challenges may be different from then, the qualities we identified in OR, integrity, empathetic selflessness, in other words, a selflessness, but at the same time feeling the pain of others and having a sense of togetherness, a principled pragmatism where you've got principles, but you have to choose the methods according to your principles to move forward, and the strategic use of power. These remain the same. They are needed today to help us together to move forward for a fully democratic, cohesive, and caring nation. Thank you.
Thank Thank you so much. So thank you so much, Luli. What a great man that our president was. He sacrificed his life for the freedoms of Africans, not just South Africans. He sacrificed his life for the freedoms of the girl child, of the boy child, of the women who still experience the brunt of oppression even today. Let us learn that he gave selflessly, without thinking about any other thing, but the fact that South Africans and Africa in general must attain its liberation. Thank you very much. We continue learning. We continue drinking from your knowledge. We continue drinking as well from the commitment that the OR gave, for us to attain the freedom that we have attained, noting that we still need to attain our economic freedom. And I think if he was still alive and well and maybe age on his side, he would lead us into fighting for the total attainment of economic freedom and total liberation of society. Thank you so much. We will now, we welcome and acknowledge our chairperson of the Salga Women's Commission and NEC member, Ms. Sarah Mabua Boltman. She has joined us. Unfortunately, we had passed the part where she was supposed to give her welcome address, but we will open for her to give us a few words after we've gotten comments or questions from people that have joined into the session. Can we now open for people that, I'm not sure, Rato, if we'll be able to note if there are questions and see if there are people that have raised their hands and wanted to either contribute, not just asking questions, commenting and contributing into the discussion. This is not a question and answer platform, but a platform where we're celebrating greatness, a platform where we're celebrating a good and committed soldier who wanted to see us free and living in a happy land, happy times, knowing that we are safe and free. I see Mema Boltzmann has raised her hand. Are the other hands that we have noted, Lerato, and the Salga team?
Maybe before Chairperson, if I may come in.
Yes,
my apologies. Chair, can I come in?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, my apologies. I have some commitments after this one here. My request will be maybe for me to come in as I was supposed to have came in earlier and I couldn't. My apologies. I hope you will all understand there is something that came in quickly. You will understand NCOPs around here, but I committed myself to come here. If I can just do the presentation and when I finish, and can I please request to be recused? I will rejoin again.
Normally, we
but
don't
I'll first do my presentation.
We don't normally do open. Hence, I was saying, ma'am, we will allow you to do comments, not do opening remarks, because we don't do opening remarks after the keynote speaker has spoken. I guess you can just do a contribution on behalf of the NEC, so that we are able, and I know Meluli also wants to be recused as well. She has other commitments as well. But we really do appreciate and thank both of you for making the time. I know it's difficult, but we really appreciate you coming through. I guess you can do that as Bolirato identifies the people that want to contribute. Thank you very much, ma'am. You can go ahead.
Thank you, madam. Thank you. It was nice listening to Madam Lulu there, but let me take this opportunity to greet the leadership, greet you first, Chairperson, and greet your Deputy Chairperson, greet all councillors who are there and other politicians, and greet the leadership in Salga. I know we have officials and all. Yes, indeed. I'm just going to do a comment. Pardon me if it goes long, but I will just do that and appreciate. Let me bring you the greetings from the leadership of the NEC and indicate that the president would have loved to form part of this. Unfortunately, like I am saying here, there were other engagements that needed her, and she could not deploy anybody there. Chairperson, one would ask why SALGA is in partnership with VETS, or why will they with VETS School of Governance would host a memorial lecture for OR Tambo when the country and local is experiencing institutional challenges, which has an impact on service delivery. Well, SALGA seeks to inspire service delivery through an exemplary leader of integrity, whom OR Tambo was during a crisis, especially as this year, on the 5th of December this year, the sector will be commemorating 20 years of a democratic local government in South Africa. As citizens within our respective communities, we celebrate, amongst others, the wall-to-wall system of democratic, non-racial and responsive local government, deepening of democracy by ensuring public participation in the affairs of local government through various platforms such as IDPs, as we all know, and implementation of various institutional systems to deliver services where there were none, or sometimes we talk about some services that are given or provided, which are very few. So SALGA is trying in, by all means. We've dealt with the formulation of policies. We've dealt with the challenges that when municipalities are coming across, they will always run to SALGA for assistance, and we've done that, and we're still continuing to do that. Firstly, leadership, as some of you would know that OR Tambo was an accomplished choir master. The role of a choir master is the effective running of their choir, which takes a good organizational skills. And that involves the preparation of the choir through continuous rehearsals, the booking of your venues, individual performances, and choir membership management. You must be a diplomat, because dealing with a group of people will inevitably involve coming across many different characters and preferences, where harmoniously working together is imperative. You must be an enthusiast who must motivate and create exciting opportunities for growth of the choir as a whole, and maybe concentrate on individual member of the choir as well. As I mentioned, character traits, you can already link how he was in terms of him managing the choir in exile, managing the branch of the ANC towards dethroning the apartheid government. As local government, we have to play the role of an organizer between other spheres of government and our communities. We are diplomats, as we are at the forefront of service delivery. And as the crisis of COVID-19 has to be managed and reassure communities about the fight against corruption, we've seen hawks running here and there, getting to municipalities. We must play a role of being people who are very enthusiastic in terms of correcting the wrongs. Secondly, SALGA has been the proud host of the annual OR Tambo Intermunicipal Games since the year 2006, which have been by both the OR and Adelaide Tambo Foundation, Provincial Executive Committee, as well as the full participation by all member municipalities in Gauteng, aimed at fostering social cohesion. Another anchor of humanity that was modeled by the legendary OR Tambo. The annual games for SALGA are highly significant towards the promotion of social cohesion, Similarly, the Games has facilitated the improvement of sports facilities in numerous municipalities who are hosts on rotational basis. We resuscitated the sporting federations, and as a result, many municipalities are now in a better position to implement sports development for communities. Our Tambo was a promoter of people's rights, not because of any identifying character, but simply that they are human beings. The promotion of social cohesion would have received his strongest support and encouragement. Lastly, Chairperson, we cannot deny that our sector is marred by inefficiencies as a result of unethical leadership and gaping need for restoration of governance. As in the revolution influenced by OR and many others, of course, the onus is in our hands or on you, the leaders of today, for the next part of what will influence a new revolution. Let's take the baton, Comrade Chairperson. Let's take the baton from OR Tambo to exercise exemplary leadership in a time when our sector is in crisis. We cannot look away, Chairperson. We cannot avoid it. We need to rise to the occasion. Chairperson, to the leaders within local government, both political and administration, we must ensure that your contribution in this sector should be entrenched on selflessness, and integrity as O.R. Tambo portrayed. Furthermore, maybe before that, the speaker now, the keynote speaker, you know, when she was speaking, I was listening here and I was wondering, how can we, if it was something that you can apply to get or apply to pass and all that, we could have said, let us go all get a little bit from what O.R. Tambo was, and a little bit from what O.R. Tambo was doing and saying and thinking. So, Chairperson, the work you do today should be, or the work we do today should be for the benefit for the future. And I will therefore want all of us to, in our little corners, in our work areas, in our committees where we serve, in our homes as well, try to get a little from what O.R. Tambo was and spread that. If each and every one of us can do that, I'm telling you, the issues and the country can change to be the better. You know, these ethical issues, people must be acting very ethical so that we tomorrow we will be gone as leaders, and our kids or those who are coming to lead after us must get the presentation that we've received now by the keynote speaker. You know, the way she was saying things, how I wished that all of us take from the cue that O.R. Tambo was. Chairperson, I thank you, and I thank you very much, and I wish all of us well as we try to behave in a very ethical way so that our country tomorrow can talk about us as we do with O.R. Tambo. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mami. Those were comments. There were no questions to Mama Luli. Thank you, Mama. And we appreciate you coming through. And as you know, that we do really love you as members of SALGA. Thank you very much. Okay, I have one question that's going to Luli from Chad Reed. There's a comment there, then there's a question. Lovely articulation, Professor Luli. An old adage says vanity is the greatest seducer of reason. These are good words. Thank you very much, Chad. The question is, what are your thoughts regarding the vanity of leadership within the ANC received from the effects of a shift in power? I'm not sure if we have another question so that we note all of them, then Mama Lulu responds so that we all, give her time as well. She had requested to leave. Then I guess after that she answers the question, the deputy chair will come in to do vote of thanks so that we do proper before Mama leaves. Then all of us can close the session. Drato, do you see other questions?
Councillor, there's a hand up. Anna, one of our attendees, has her hand up.
Okay, I can't see the hand. Can you identify the name of the person?
It's Anna.
Okay. Anna, you have your hand up. You can go ahead.
She's muted. Anna, please unmute.
Anna, unmute, please.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Thanks, Chairperson. I also want to welcome the presentation made by Mama, but I don't know if it's the question. I just want to, just this one to be noted. When I listen to the presenter, when he talks about our late comrade Tambo, when he articulated he was a principled man. When I listen the way he describes him, I relate to what is happening today in the movement, because the things that we are doing, we are not doing according to where they used to run the movement when it comes to principle way. Even our leaders today, when they create, I will just make an example, Mamfikwe. Let the guidelines that we are going to face 2021. Those guidelines, they are driving individuals not to work in a principled way. They drive individuals to go out and motivate themselves, not to be rely behind the movement. So I don't know whether when we sit and we check all the things that were done by our leaders like O.R. Tambo before, why we don't link those things so that those who come after them, like today, what is happening in the country, they can be reminded us to make sure that we work in the principled way. Thanks.
Thank you. That was not a question, it was a comment. It's noted. Do we have other hands? I can't see. No, we don't.
No, there's nothing else.
Maybe we should allow Mama Lulu to respond to chat question and maybe do her closing remarks as well. Then immediately after, Deputy Chair, Councillor Raikani, can you then do the vote of thanks immediately after? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not exactly sure what the question was, if you don't mind repeating it, the one that was raised before at first. I'm not quite sure what the question was.
Okay, he is asking about your thoughts regarding the vanity of leadership within the ANC, and more so after the shift. I guess he's not necessarily talking about the national leadership's vanity, but where I might be misinterpreting what he was asking, because shifts in power happened in the local spheres. So I'm not sure whether the focus is there or not, but he's saying the vanity of leadership received from the effects of a shift in power. I'm not sure if he's around, that Lerato, we can allow him to talk and be clear about what he's asking so that we don't misinterpret his thoughts.
Yes.
Okay,
hear me?
Yes, we can, Ted. Go ahead, please.
Thank you very much. I thank you, everybody.
Ted, we lost you there.
Or for hearing me out. Can you hear me? Hi, can you hear me, guys?
Yes, we can now.
From Mom Luli, in regards to the vanity of the leadership within the ANC, how does that reasoning of theirs affect, or what is her thoughts on the vanity or the bias of the vanity that we are all susceptible to? How does that? What is her thoughts on that? I don't know if I'm making sense.
Thank you for
Am
the.
I understanding him?
Right. Yes. Well, you know, I'm not exactly sure, but I mean, what we are all aware of is when people are thrust into high positions, you know, in the beginning, of course, one's kind of overwhelmed by the honor, but you know, all of us get used to situations we find ourselves in. And after a while, we begin to listen less to what others feel because of one's own experience. You feel that you've got the experience, and you you may know better than others, ordinary people, because you've been having a broader vision and experience. I think that that's part of it, and slowly, you know, I mean, it's happened in so many movements. When you think of so many communist parties around the world that have let down their, you know, the members, that as you become settled into power, you begin to forget the realities of ordinary people, and even the realities of the poorest of the poor. And you become distracted with like toys, expensive toys. And well, we all know that. We've even witnessed it, of course, in the past. And that is why we are turning again back to OR, who was somebody who had all the opportunities. You know, he'd become well known for his academic achievements, and then for his law practice, and then, of course, as the leader of the movement, which grew to become a world inspiration. And yet he never lost. I mean, it is remarkable. You know, he didn't lose his head or his values right to the very end. You know, he sort of died in the saddle, as it were. And he had said, you know, that if he should die before he was able to hand over the reins, he said to all the members, guard our precious movement. And so we have to, and of course, with liberation, we've had members who before didn't really know as much about the ANC as the older members as they joined. And so, in a sense, I think we need to make sure that people know our history as people struggling for democracy. And we need to know the history of that struggle in order to really appreciate the value of having achieved what we've done so far, but also to know that we still have a long way to go. Maybe not long, but we still have an enormous duty and a responsibility to uplift the poor and to educate people in terms of the inclusiveness that we're struggling to create in our democracy. So, you know, a knowledge of history, I think, is really very important, but we also have to step forward and continue to the struggle, you know, for an equal society. I don't know, Chad, if you'd like to sort of elaborate on your question.
No, thanks, Mami. I think we should move. There's another one. Thank you very much for the responses. There's a question from TK Poe. He greets or she greets and says, Dumelang, and thanks for this discussion. The question is it wrong to have to admit that perhaps OR Tambo, Biko, and Sobukwe and the likes were 1 in a million leaders? Perhaps this current crop are the norm and we just have to guard against their excesses. Hey, I guess because we are leaders as well, we are part of the crops, ne? TK language there, you know, but that's fine. Can we get your view on this one, Mami?
Thank you, Chair. Well, you know, as an historian, I have, of course, been looking at the inspiring leaders, and it's true that they seem to be fewer than we need, but then that's up to us. You know, we're supposed to pick up the burden and carry it and be inspired by those who went before us, those who are inspiring, and be warned by those who fell along the way. I mean, these are lessons, you know, in history, and you know, we can go back thousands of years ago in history of the people who were so admirable when they were struggling, and then blotted their reputations when they came into power. But I do think that that generation, from Chief Lutuli to Madiba, I suppose, Walter Sisulu, Madiba, the people who survived that generation, I think they still have a lot of examples for, you know, that worthy examples. They are worthy examples for us to follow. And you don't have to suffer anymore, hopefully, through a lifetime of imprisonment in order to make a difference and in order to inspire our fellow South Africans to, you know, to have a sense of self-worth and move forward to try and make a difference. Let your life make a difference so that in the leaving of it, you feel, you know, you have served your people. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Can we close the questions at that and the comments, unless there's a hand that I can see, Rado? Otherwise, I'm suggesting that we move and call the deputy chairperson of the working group to do the closing remarks.
We can carry on, Councillor.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Raikane, you have the floor, and I'm actually tempted to thank Mama Dulu, but let me leave it for you.
Thank you very much, Chair, for the opportunity that you have given to me as the Deputy Chair of Gauteng Salga Committee. Thank you, Councillor Bosman, our Chair for Women Commission NEC member. We thank you, and I fear that the chairperson was saying, we love you. We love you as Gauteng Salga. Thank you very much for being part of us. Mama Lulu, thank you very much. Thank you on behalf of Salga Gauteng for the informative lecture that talks about our icon, our leader, our father, our grandfather. It was an opportunity for us to be part of this lecture. We thank you very much, Mama. May God bless and protect you for us so that we have more lectures that you can also give to us as this Gauteng committee. I also wanted to thank all the participants that are here today. We are so fortunate to be part of this lecture. The MMCs that are here from all different municipalities in Gauteng, in our committee, I wanted to say to you, thank you very much for being part of us, for attending this lecture. The Limpopo legislature, thank you very much for being part of us. Gauteng legislature, thank you very much to participate in our lecture in Gauteng. And I think the chair, you also said the KwaZulu-Natal legislature is also part of us. Thank you very much for being part of us. The Salga Gauteng, thank you so much for organizing this lecture on behalf of us as the MMCs that are responsible for this lecture. We wanted to say thank you very much. Keep up the good work, the communication that you forever talk to us or give to us. We wanted to say thank you very much in advance, although we know that it's your responsibility because you get paid for that, but we must also acknowledge you. Thank you so much for that. Our chairperson, Tidi Mufikwe, our councillor, I wanted to say thank you very much. You were very excellent for taking this opportunity, for being the program director of this session. I wanted also to say thank you very much. Continue to do the good work on behalf of us as collective. I also wanted to say to Eguruleni Metro Municipality Councillor Mfikwe to say we wanted to thank them on behalf of Salga Gauteng that they erected the statue for our father, for our icon. We wanted to say thank you very much for doing that in our Tambo airport. We wanted to say thank you very much for the statue that you have done on our behalf. I wanted to say thank you very much for everything. The participants, all of us, thank you very much for being part. I know that it's Friday, we have some other commitments, but Ngiyabulela, Ngiyabulela, Melulu, may God bless you for all the efforts that you are here with us. Ngiyabulela Mewaka to be part of us, and it's a very informative session that we have taken. Ngiyabulela Manabeso. The meeting is officially closed.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. May we all have a good weekend and learn and drink from this fountain of knowledge that is OR Tambo. Luli, thank you very much. May the Lord keep you for us as you share this historic moment all the time. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend.
God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you,
guys. Let's go back to work. Those who are at work, like me, I'm going to a meeting.
All of us, Chair.
Bye-bye.
Hey, yes, Papa.
We have a short survey for participants.
Oh, yes. I almost forgot that. Thank you very much. As we log out, please look out for a short survey that the governance school is asking us to go through so that they're able to perfect the partnership that we have. Please do the survey. Okay. It won't take long.
Okay.
To all the participants.
Bye-bye from me, comrades.
Thanks, Ma. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.